welcome back to Spin Cycle Live. I'm your host, Nathan Hale. Today is August 7th, 2025. It is a beautiful day out here today, and I hope you all are ready to spend the next half an hour listening to all the great things I have to say about everything happening in American politics today. We have so much to cover, so many things to go through, so much financial stuff to talk about. I opened up the news feed today, and we have like 3 stories that have to do with like financial things today, which kind of crazy. I'm not used to having that many stories with that amount of finance stuff in it, but excited to get into it. So I hope you're all doing so good today. I hope you're having a great day. And let's go and get into our very first story today. This comes from the wonderful New York Post. So we covered earlier this week about the redistricting efforts happening in Texas and how the Democrat the Democrat representatives of the state legislature have fled. They have fled their job. They've quit apparently, and like the cowards they are, and they've headed to Illinois, I believe Massachusetts, and New York maybe. And I think it says in this article, so we'll talk about it in a minute. But there's absolutely shameful behavior, first off, from the major political party that is the Democrats, just leaving their state. I mean, imagine if you were called into your job and you just left your job to go on vacation, and not only did you just leave your job, but you used your boss's credit card to pay for the vacation, right? You know, we as the people are the employer of these representatives, and we pay them to do their job, which they're supposed to do by representing us in the state that we elected them to represent us in, and now they're just off somewhere in some distant land that is Chicago. So this article is entitled, FBI Helping Texas Law Enforcement Locate Rogue Dems Who Fled State Redistricting Session. So the FBI is now assisting Texas authorities with finding rogue Democrats who fled the state to stall a redistricting effort, according to a bureau spokesperson. So Senator John Cornyn, who's a senator from Texas, had requested FBI involvement after the 57 legislators decamped to blue states, including Illinois, Massachusetts, and New York, in the middle of a special session convened to draw congressional maps. Quote, I am proud to announce that Director Kash Patel has approved my request for the FBI to assist state and local law enforcement in locating runaway Texas House Democrats, Cornyn said in a statement after asking the feds to help round up the potential lawbreakers. Quote, I thank President Trump and Director Patel for supporting and swiftly acting on my call for the federal government to hold these supposed lawmakers accountable for fleeing Texas. We cannot allow these rogue legislators to avoid their constitutional requirements. So, a Texas Democrat, Yolanda Jones, said, quote, I will liken this to the Holocaust, on Tuesday, before issuing an apology for the unhinged comparison between partisan politicking and the slaughter of more than 6 million Jews by the Nazis. So, we'll talk about that in a minute. That was the wildest thing I've heard in this entire story. So, President Trump has indicated Tuesday that the FBI, quote, may have to get involved to force the runaway legislators back to Austin. Republican Governor Greg Abbott ordered state authorities Monday to arrest the delinquent Texas House Democrats and bring them back for the special legislative session in the state's capital. Abbott indicated on the Will Cain Show Tuesday that state Democrats who took financial assistance for their trip could be removed from office. So that's about all I wanted to cover in that. But, you know, I think they're doing the absolute right thing here. I mean, imagine if, for a moment, if Republicans just fled out of one of their states because Democrats were redistricting. Imagine what would happen if all 3 of the Republicans of California fled the state because they were pissed off that California is gerrymandering their districts to benefit the Democrats, and they fled to Texas and Florida and Tennessee, for example, right? Imagine what would happen that one. This would be front page news everywhere, right? Democrats would be calling for these Republicans to be relieved of their duties, that they shouldn't be represented, that they're not represented. It would be a whole cabal. But no, because it is the Democrats in Texas, they're heroes, according to a lot of people out there. Or at least they're not the bad guys in this situation. Now, I'm not a fan of gerrymandering whoever does it, but what makes me laugh is that a lot of these Democrats fled to Illinois, which is one of the most gerrymandered states in the entire country. I mean, it's repeated time and time again that they're one of the worst gerrymandered states in the country. You can look up a congressional map of Illinois. I think we might have pulled it up here on Tuesday when I was first talking about it. At least we pulled up the Texas one. But, I mean, you can see a little clip of it right here. This, if you're watching the screen, this is an actual district in Illinois. It's this like weird L-shaped looking thing that spreads all the way from East St. Louis, all the way up through the Capitol in Springfield, which, if you're not familiar with the state of Illinois, is about an hour apart from there. An hour car drive, right? It crossed, several different county lines, and it's all to make sure that the Democrats have an extra seat because of it. Because frankly, there should be more Republicans in Illinois. It's just been so gerrymandered that they can't get elected there. So it's not right for either party to do it. But I think it's laughable they fled to a state that is one of the worst gerrymandered states in the country. It's just absolutely hypocritical. And frankly, this statement from this Democrat comparing somehow, I don't know how this has anything to do with Nazi Germany or the Holocaust, of what's happening to Democrats in Texas right now. But by Yolanda Jones, it's an evil statement to make, frankly. It's completely disgusting that you'd have an actual representative who's been elected by the people of Texas to go and represent them in the state house saying stuff like this, right? I don't know where the Democrats all of a sudden got... I don't know where all the Nazi stuff came from, frankly, because they've been calling Republicans Nazis and anything that goes against the Democrats since, like, 2015. I don't know where all the Nazi comparison stuff came from, but it's been everywhere. It seems to have really upticked recently. I mean, we heard it all with the Sidney Sweeney ad. We're hearing it now with the Texas Democrats. I mean, left, right, and center, we're hearing all about, oh, this is Nazi propaganda, that this is like the Holocaust. It's like, we can't keep calling everything like it was, like this is Nazi Germany, right? It completely degrades what actually happened during World War II. If we keep calling everything, oh, this is something the Nazis did, right? Or this is like the Holocaust, right? It completely degrades what it actually was. Which is, like this article said, the slaughter of more than 6 million people, right? That's not happening in Texas. So, completely disgusting. That representative should be ashamed of herself. I think it's perfectly reasonable for the FBI to be getting involved to send these representatives back. I mean, their job is to represent the people in the Texas State House. And this is a time right now where even though Democrats are in the minority of the State House, their voice of reason for getting a more balanced congressional map put together that benefits people maybe a little more equally would actually be warranted right now. Because if they're not there, it's just Republicans in their echo chamber talking and making the map even more gerrymandered to benefit themselves. So this is why it's good to have opposition, because in a time like this, you need a little bit of opposition to pump the brakes a little bit and say, no, this map that Texas is proposing is a little crazy, frankly, and could be a little bit more balanced. So, and it's stuff like this, too, that gets Republicans even more on the bandwagon of gerrymandering, saying, okay, well, if there's representatives who, or if the Democrats are the parties that are comparing redistricting in Texas to the Holocaust, well, maybe we should be gerrymandering then to get less of them in government, if that's how they think. So, it just gives more power to the conservatives then. But that's all I gotta say about that. Let's go move on to our next story. So this comes from USA Today. So Trump to sign executive order opening way for alternative assets in 401ks, officials say. This kind of caught my eye. So I think this was originally published by Reuters. So U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order on Thursday that aims to allow private equity, real estate, cryptocurrency, and other alternative assets in 401k retirement accounts, a White House official said. Quote, the order directs the Securities and Exchange Commission to facilitate access to alternative assets for participant-directed defined contribution for retirement savings plans by revising applicable regulations and guidance. That was quite the mouthful, the White House official said, on condition of anonymity. The order also directs the Labor Secretary to consult with her counterparts at the Treasury Department and the SEC and other federal regulators to determine whether parallel regulatory changes should be made at those agencies, the official said. Such a move would be a boon, or probably a boom, for big alternative asset managers such as Blackstone, BXN, KRRN, and Apollo Global Management, APON, by opening the $12 trillion market for retirement funds known as defined contribution plans to their investments. However, critics say it could add too much risk to retirement accounts such as 401ks. So, this is, I think, honestly, probably one of the most, Republican things I've heard in a while. You know, we're always talking about, as Republicans, of saying, hey, not everyone was going to do this, but why should there be a law stopping me, right? So, for my retirement accounts, right, not everyone is going to use their retirement accounts to invest in real estate or cryptocurrency or any of these other assets that would be opened up to this. But why should there be a law stopping me from using my retirement account to invest in those, right? So the article says it's a risk. Yeah, any sort of investment is always going to be a risk, and cryptocurrency and real estate certainly are higher end risks than mutual funds, for example. But that should be a risk that is done on a case-by-case basis. So when I sat down and when I have been configuring my IRA, for example, right? I invest in an IRA every single month. My financial advisor asked me, hey, what level of risk do you want to invest in, right? So there's high risk accounts, there's medium risk accounts, there's low risk accounts, right? Low risk accounts yield the least amount of returns, but you're the least likely to lose money from it. High risk accounts yield the highest amount of returns generally, but you have a higher likelihood of potentially losing money because of it. So I invested kind of right in the middle of the road, where it's not on the high end, but it's not on the low end either, and it's the safe call, right? But if you're risky, or you wanted to diversify more, you could invest in higher risk assets if you wanted to, and that's a choice that you should be able to make as the investor, right? Just as if I'm deciding what my money is going to for a 401k, I should be able to invest in cryptocurrency or real estate or any other assets that are out there with that account, and assume the risk on myself. And if I lose money because of it, well, that was my own choice because I invested in those things. But if I'm not willing to take that risk, I'll invest in safer options. So I think this is great. I have no issue with this at all. I frankly think this should have been done a long time ago. So good on the Trump administration. Another win for making Americans wealthier. And I hope that executive orders like this stick around for a while throughout future administrations, so that Americans can continue to grow their wealth and their assets over time. Because that's really how this will benefit, is if 30 years from now, if I can still invest in cryptocurrencies, that'll be a big deal, right? And the next administration comes through doesn't just flip this around. Or it's an executive order now that gets codified into law, in one of the upcoming Congresses, right? So we'll see. So our next story also comes from the Financial Post. So Trump plans 100% tariff on chips unless companies build in U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday said that he will impose a 100% tariff on computer chips, raising the specter of high prices for electronics, autos, household appliances, and other essential products dependent on the processors powering the digital age. So the Republican president said companies that make computer chips in the U.S. would be spared the import tax. During the COVID-19 pandemic, a shortage of computer chips increased the price of autos and contributed to higher inflation. Investors seem to interpret the potential tariff exemptions as a positive for Apple and other major tech companies that have been making huge financial commitments to manufacture more chips and other components in the US. Big tech already has made collective commitments to invest about $1.5 trillion in the US since Trump moved back into the White House in January. That figure includes a $600 billion promise from Apple after the iPhone maker boosted its commitment by tacking another $100 billion onto a previous commitment made in February. So this is absolutely fantastic. More and more companies should be investing in the United States and should be producing their products in the country. So I saw the press conference from Apple. I believe that they're manufacturing all iPhone glass now in the United States. So all iPhones going forward are going to have glass made in the country. That's absolutely fantastic and gives more jobs to working class Americans. So I'm excited to see how the left spins all of this into a negative against Trump somehow. I think that a lot of people forget one of the many reasons why we want manufacturing to come back into the United States. Not only is because we want those jobs going to Americans and we want our products produced here, so China just can't all of a sudden cut off our flow of computer chips, for example. But, America has the best factories in the world. We have the cleanest manufacturing of any country on the planet. We want these products made in this country not only because we can pay a fair wage to those workers who over in China, they get paid pennies on the dollar to make this stuff, but it's also greener for the environment, which is what all of these environmentalists, this is why all the environmentalists should be a fan of all of this, because moving manufacturing back to the country makes the world a greener place. The less we can manufacture in China means the less stuff we're spewing up into the air, more jobs back in the country, more money for us as Americans, and it's just better for everyone. It's a win-win-win across the board. It might make products slightly more expensive because we're having to pay more money for them, but you know what? I think that's a fair pill to swallow. If we're having to pay more money for a product made in the United States, but the working conditions of people making that product are higher, the environmental consequences because of it are lower, and the product quality is just as good, great. So maybe it means you don't buy an iPhone every year anymore. Maybe you buy an iPhone every 2 years. So, big deal. I've had my iPhone since, I think, 2021. So, still works great. All right. Last story of the week, Financial Post story. Trump to sign order targeting banks on political discrimination. So, President Trump plans to sign an executive order Thursday aimed at eliminating practices by banks and their regulators that result in certain customers being denied access to financial services for ideological reasons. The order directs federal banking regulators to remove reputational risk standards from their guidance and training materials and identify financial institutions that engaged in unlawful debanking in the past, according to a senior White House official who outlined the effort on the condition of anonymity. Federal authorities are directed to impose fines or take other remedial measures they deem appropriate on institutions they are found to have such policies. Regulators will also be required to review compliant data and refer instances of unlawful banking based on religion or to the Justice Department. Financial institutions under the jurisdiction of the Small Business Administration will also be required to make reasonable efforts to reinstate clients who were unlawfully denied services. Trump earlier this week said banks had discriminated against him in the past. JP Morgan Chase & Co. had asked him to close accounts he held for decades within 20 days, and Bank of America Corp. Denied his attempt to deposit more than $1 billion. He said in a CNBC interview, regulators in the Biden administration had been ordered to destroy Trump, the president said. Bank of America, the second largest U.S. bank, had restricted lending to companies that make assault-style guns used for non-military purposes following shootings at a high school in Florida in 2018. Citigroup also announced its own set of restrictions for clients selling guns that year. So, you know, we as conservatives, we tend to be all about free speech and, you know, giving giving companies the freedom to sell their products to who they want to sell them to, and providing services to who they want to provide them to, with, you know, with little complication, right? In the case of banks, banks are an institution that are there to serve everyone, right? And the fact that you have banks that are discriminating against people who sell guns, discriminating against people who are of a certain religion, I think is totally wrong, right? These banks are there as somewhat of a public service. They get a lot of kickbacks from the federal government. They've been bailed out time after time after time from our taxpayer money, right? From the taxpayer money of all the people they're discriminating against. They should be institutions that are open to everybody, regardless of what their background is. And that's not what's happening right now, clearly, with some of these banks. So I'm not surprised this is something that's happening. It's something that's been happening across the board in a lot of places. I choose to bank at small local banks in the area that I live in. It's a much better experience overall, frankly, than you know, putting money into these huge behemoths of banks. I don't really want to support them all that much, but millions of Americans do. And the scary thing is that when you have money in these institutions, they can decide to limit your access if you're selling guns, for example, right? I remember there was something where I believe Citigroup was tracking people using their credit cards who were purchasing firearms, right? Absolutely crazy. So good on the Trump administration for stepping up and doing something about this and helping to protect Americans so that when they go to these institutions, they should be able to trust them, and they should know that their money is safe in them, and they should have just as many privileges as everyone else out there. So, absolutely fantastic. Anyways. Well, folks, that is the end of today's episode. We've gone through everything that I felt was of note to cover. We had a lot of financial news to talk about. And, yeah. We'll be back again on Tuesday of next week, so stay tuned for that episode on all the platforms you are watching this on right now. If you missed the episode, you want to go back and watch it, you can watch back on YouTube or on Rumble. You can scroll back through my Twitter feed and watch the playback there as well if you'd like. And, yeah, you can follow me on X, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, TikTok. I have a Substack now as well. All of the links are in the description. They're also in my bio on X. If you go through that link on there, you can find everything there. Follow me on all those different platforms. We have so much more to come in the coming weeks and months. So thank you so much for following me on this journey that has been so far, and I hope you're enjoying the show. If you have suggestions on how we can make this experience so much better for you, I feel like I'm a flight attendant. If you have suggestions on how we can make this experience better for you, please send me a DM and let me know what you think. And share this show with friends. Let people know that I've got the best opinions on the internet right here on this show. They better be watching me every single Tuesday and Thursday, 6 p.m. on these channels. But with that, I've been Nathan Hale. This has been Spin Cycle Live. Peace out.